Hey, YouTubers, Tazman here, bringing you another episode of Taz Teaches Java. And in our last episode, we were talking a lot about polymorphism and how we talked about overriding and what were the two words? Overriding and overloading. So how you could override and overload different things in Java. Now, we kind of came to a point where I could go one of two ways. And I think, so we could either talk about access modifiers or we could talk about our data types. And I think I'm going to actually talk about access modifiers because they kind of relate directly into the encapsulation that we were talking about and our classes and stuff. So let's just talk really quick. Let me minimize this, and looks like we got a pink thingy here. But let's just talk really quick, make sure I'm on a new layer, about our access modifiers. So there are basically four of them. And the first one's public. Then we have one called protected. We have one that basically, if you don't give it a modifier, it's considered the default modifier, and we'll talk about that. We're just going to call it default, but you don't actually have to say default for it. Whoops, U, L, and T. And then our last one is private. So these are the four modifiers we have in our program, and basically these kind of tie into our encapsulation and security. So the first thing, if we say this huge thing right here is the JVM, or the Java Virtual Machine, right? So this is the JVM. And then we have our little program in here. So here's our class. If this class is public, that means, let's actually draw a couple classes in here. So if a class is public, and I'm going to grab a new layer real quick just so I can get rid of it as soon as we're done. So if the class is public here, what this means is that the JVM is able to see this class no problem. Other classes are able to see this class. Even subclasses within the class, let's just call it sub, should also be able to see this class because it's public. Everyone can see it, right? So let's go ahead and do this. Now, if this class is protected, this means this class here cannot see it. The JVM directly cannot see it. What can see it would be the subclass in here. I think I'm getting this right. So the subclass is able to see it just fine, but anything outside of that class cannot see it. Only subclasses of that class or things that are extended or inheriting that class are able to see it. So once again, public, the class can see it, the entire package. Now, we haven't talked a lot about packages, but when we look in here, we've created packages. The package is just kind of like a folder or a grouping of a type of classes. So for example, in this encapsulation, these guys, if they were set to public, and these guys were set to public, they would be able to see across the packages into the other packages. So, for example, like all your Java libraries are probably public because even though we're not directly in there, we can actually access them, right? So this is protected right here. So, so just really quick, I'm looking at my notes and I didn't necessarily say it. So public is able to be seen from the classes. It's able to be seen from the package, subclasses, and the world. And the world would be the JVM or whatever else, right? Protected, on the other hand, if you take the world out of that, then you have I guess I didn't kind of, like if I said package, this is probably more of the package, and in here's your classes. Or we could just do this. So this is the package, package. We're going to have some examples of this, so it should be a little easier to understand. So this is another class in the package. So it's protected. Other classes in the package can also see it. However, classes outside in the world cannot see this class. Okay, so let's go on to the next one, which is the default. Now the default, and as you can tell, we're getting a little more and more secure as we go down this list. It's getting tougher and tougher to be able to access these things from outside. So we're going to actually throw in here, this is my master one, because I don't want to lose this anymore, package, right? And then here's another class in here. And let's just do a subclass right here, subclass. So when we're talking about the default, this means that only the class and packages can see it. Not necessarily subclass can actually see into this class. So it's just the classes that are within the package. So anything within here is able to see it, right? And subclass is actually removed from this one. Then our final one is with private. And this one is the most secure of all. Let's make sure we're on the right one. So if we're talking about private, this means only the class itself can see inside itself. Everything else cannot see, not even a subclass or the package. Nothing can see it except for the class itself. So there's nope, not here, not here, not here. Everything's blocked except for through the class itself. So let's go ahead and just kind of do a demo of this. So I'm going to pull back up my Eclipse here, and I've created two packages. I did this off camera so that we could get through more. So we have this public access one, and we have this limited access one. So here we have our entry point. This is outside of the package. This would be something, the world. And as you can see here, even though we're importing the limited access and we're importing everything within it, and we haven't really talked about importing and stuff yet, but we will later. You can see here the access that we have to it. So let's go and just do, let's see, so this is our private access, protected access. Now this is the guy that's extending it or inheriting it. So this is actually our subclass. And then this is just another class within the same package. So if we look at this, we have our main thing. This is what everyone's trying to access. So you can see here we have a private integer named private number. We have a public integer named public number. We have a protected integer named protected number. And then we have integer, which is our default number. And you notice we don't have to put default in front of it. If there is nothing in front of it, it's automatically considered default. So as you can see from within our class, we have absolutely no issues with any of our stuff accessing any of our variables here. You can see private number can be set with no problem at all. Public number, protected number, and the default number can all be set from within the class. But if we came here and we want to start seeing errors, so this is trying to access the private access. This is trying to access in private access. It's trying to access the private number. So as you can see, directly accessing inside of priv, because this is what we're giving it, just priv. We'll talk about all this. Like I said, it doesn't matter so much if you understand the words and stuff or the syntax at this moment, other than what we're directly talking about. But if I were to uncomment out this, you'll see we will get some red lines. Now these red lines are there to tell you that there's an issue with your program. So if we mouse over that for a minute, you can see here it says the field private access private number is not visible, meaning I can't see it. And the same thing with the method. Now we talked about methods and our variables in is that variable? What did I want to say? The field, I guess. So our variables and methods as being like nouns as are your variables, and verbs would be these. So these are like your person, place, things. These describe or are the actual item. These are more verbs. These are actions. So with this, I'm trying to add, which is a verb. So anyway, as you can see, we get an error trying to access from outside of the package to the private. So let's go ahead and comment this back out because it won't be happy with us if we don't. And we haven't talked about comments. So now here's the private, not the private one. Yeah, this is the public. So everything's trying to access private. That's why all these say private access, because that's the data type we're doing. But we're trying to access public. So here you can see we're trying to access public number, and we're trying to access the public function pub add. Now as you can see, they're both in here. However, this one, pub add, is a public one, and public number is also a public one. So therefore, this has no problem seeing it because this falls within the world, or I guess the world's probably the best way to say it, outside of the package and everything else. So this guy's able to see there because it's public. So then if we go look at the next one, we don't have to comment anything out because that's all perfect. So if we go to this next one here, we have the default method. And as you can see, we're in another package. So this, once again, our default number also is going to be hidden. So our access to the variable or the field is not visible, and neither is the method. So from outside of this package and the subclasses and the classes, this guy cannot access anything unless it's public. That's kind of what we're getting at here. Hopefully you're getting that too. And then same thing with our protected. We can't access that, the exact same thing. I'm not going to uncomment both these, but you'll see we get the exact same thing. So that kind of shows you if I set something protected, private, or the default, I'm not going to be able to access it outside the package itself. Things within the package should be able to see it just fine, which we're going to do. Now I added this guy down here because if you look here, this is where we're accessing the protected class. Now you'll notice in the protected class, I've set these things to public so we can access them, because I wanted to show you how you can actually access the private things through a protected access, or because this guy is public but this guy is not, we can access this, and then because that is protected in here, the protected sub here, the protected, that's subtract, and the protected number, we can access them from this guy, and then we're using this guy to, we're using the access to this guy from the outside to be able to access the private stuff. So in here you can see, I also am showing here that in our protected one, we're able, because this is a subclass, as you can see, we're a subclass of private access. So if I uncomment this guy, you'll see we get the same error we did on private, right? Because private add, we cannot see. Private number, we cannot see because that's private only to this class. However, we're able to see a lot more. We're able to see the protected without a problem, because here we're getting the protected stuff. We're making it public through our own means. So we're kind of controlling access to this guy through this guy. And then we can also do the default from here because we're in the same package. And we better comment this guy back out. Like so. So that's kind of what I want to point out. Now this is just another class within this package. So just another class it's not extending or anything like that. Basically this is kind of a copy of this guy down here, the entry point, just to kind of show you how if we're in the same package, all of a sudden we have more access than we did before. So here we can see the only thing I have commented out is this private one, because when it's private, only that class can see it. However, we can see it because we're in the same package. We can see the public, we can see default, and we can see the protected. We can even use that second protected, prot2, which is doing protected access. We can even access it there. So I don't expect you to understand how we're accessing it. I just wanted to show you that we do have a way of accessing the private variables. If we need to, we can control it. So this kind of gives you an idea of those things. Now there's also, anytime you create a new main, you'll also see there's another access modifier, maybe, I don't know. So this is public. Static means that I do not have to declare, or I cannot actually create an object. So as you can see here, we're creating an object of the class. So this is the class right here, the class definition, or whatever you want to call it, or kind of the blueprint. This is what we want to create a copy of the blueprint of. And then this is going to actually create it in memory as to what variables it holds and the values that we assign it and such. And we're going to go over that later also. So for example, right here, when we create the pub, right, and it runs this guy, which is called a default constructor. Now we can access our copy of the private access. We can access our copy of from what the blueprint is, or I got to come up with better words for these. But this is kind of like, I think we talked about it, that this is kind of like the blueprint of what we're making the copy of. This is the actual copy, right? So here we're going to say, okay, I want to access this copy or this actual object, and I want to assign these variables here, or I want to pass it a 3 and a 5, and this is pub add. So what this is going to do is it's going to come in here and it's going to say, okay, I'm going to receive two variables and I'm going to add them together. So I'm going to say, actually that's the other one, right? Private add. Oh yeah, so this is going to go here. It's going to add the two variables together. It's going to return private number, which goes to here, which returns it as public number, which gets it out to our thing. And like I said, if you don't understand all that, how it's returning and passing and stuff like that, that's not really the important thing. The important thing is to understand that we do have these ways of kind of securing or giving access permissions to our different things. And you'll understand as we go on through this course why this is important, why we want to do something like this, why we want to protect our stuff. And hopefully you kind of understand also, as you see here, we're actually calling main, but we never actually created our main, but that's the main entry point for a program. So we don't actually have to create an object of main. It's just there. It's static. It's always there. We don't have to create an object. We can't create an object of it. So hopefully that kind of made sense to you. If you guys have any questions, like always, feel free to leave some comments, questions down below. If I got something wrong, which could happen, feel free to put me in my place. Let me know that, hey, whoops, you did a whoopsie. But that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my Discord and my other channels. And that's it. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.